Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, well, that's a good start, isn't it? So for those who don't know me, I'm Claire. Nice to see you. So yes, I'm going to be talking about the wise and foolish builders. Now, I didn't anticipate to be talking about this because, well, it was just before Taizé Not Taizé, if you've heard all about that. And I knew that I would be coming and doing Open to God for you guys. And I was like, Lord, I don't want to rush Open to God. I want to kind of have a plan. And I was like, so, if you could just give me idea, that would be amazing. And, the days went by and I was like, still nothing. And it was just before bedtime and I was like, if you could just give me a dream, that would be amazing. And this is what I dreamt. I dreamt about the wise and foolish builders. So I was like, amazing. Okay, so this is what you've got, guys. It comes at the end of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And I think we often think about this parable, don't we, as like a children's story. I was thinking we could do a nice little visual demonstration, couldn't we, with the little houses and some sand and, I don't know, maybe that's like the children's work of me coming out. But, I think Jesus didn't just tell this for the children, did he? He was telling it for everyone. And I think the three things that I really want to come across, like as our mantra for tonight, is hear Christ, build on him, and stand firm. And no one kind of sets out to be a foolish builder, especially in Jesus's time, when the culture around shame was a big deal. If you were known to be a foolish builder, that would have affected not just you, but it would have probably affected who you were going to marry and even bring shame like upon your family. It would have harmed your whole reputation. But also building on rock, that would have took some digging. It would have took perseverance, hard work. It would have meant digging through layers and layers of sand and soil until you reached the bedrock. And they didn't have mechanical JCBs either. So building a house on the sand, on the surface, was that tempting? Absolutely. But Jesus wasn't advising on construction here. Hear Christ, build on him, stand firm. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus says, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And in Luke's account, Jesus begins with a question. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? The difference between the wise builder and the foolish builder is not that one hears Jesus and the other doesn't. I think both hear. The difference is that one allows the words of Jesus to become the foundation of their life. So can we have the next slide? There we go, look. So both builders face the same storm. The rain falls on both houses. The flood comes to both houses. The wind comes and beats against both houses. The storm is not the sign of failure. The storm is the test of the foundation. And what do we do when storms come? Hear Christ, build on him, stand firm. Now, I don't know about you, but I think we can all say that we have weathered some storms. You know, we feel exhausted, burnt out, and our faith feels a little bit weak. So I think the question isn't, have we faced storms? I think the better question is, who or what are our faith built upon? So surely just being a good Christian will get you through good times. Or being a good person. I don't know, maybe any religion or philosophy will do. So Claire, are you saying that Christianity is the superior religion? Well, this man here, do we all know who he is? Yes, good. This is Bonhoeffer. And he said Jesus Christ came to destroy religion. You see, Christ did not come to give us another set of beliefs, to make ourselves acceptable to God, but to draw us into relationship with him. If Christ and knowing him boiled down to Sunday services and rituals, then it will be a temporary shelter and not a strong fortress. The wise builder did not have a better house because he had the right religion, but because he heard Christ, built his life on him, and stood firm when storms came. We are the people of God. We are not afraid to examine the structures and the systems. We are not afraid of questions or wrestling with things we once assumed because of our faith is not ultimately built upon tradition or having an answer to everything. We are wise builders because we know that faith is not simply something we believe. It is something we become. It is a life built upon the rock that is Jesus Christ. And that means we do not have to be afraid. As Paul writes in 2 Corinthians, where the Spirit of the Lord is, well done, yes. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And the Lord is here. The Lord is here right now. Right here, right now. That means freedom from fear, freedom from striving, freedom from carrying things that aren't yours to carry, freedom from believing that our worth is dependent on how well we hold things together. The truth that we are loved sons and daughters of the King is not fragile. And because Christ is our foundation, we don't need to fear when the storms come. Hear Christ, build on him, stand firm. Right, so we're ready for the next one, Tim. Now, Tim, did you smile when you saw this one? Yeah. Now, I took a break when writing this sermon, and I needed a snack. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna, pop into the kitchen. And I got this snack because, well, it was the only crisp we had in the house, and yeah. Now, if you know me though, that's quite adventurous for me because I'm a bit of a plain Jane, really. For crisps, I'm normally plain or prawn cocktail, maybe chicken flavour at a push. But I was like, oh, I remember eating these once when I was younger. And I was like, they can't be that bad. And the kitchen's right there. I went into the garden and I was like, if they're really that spicy, I'll grab some milk. Well, they were that spicy. And I was like, how did I ever eat those things? At one point, Twyla, our dog, was next to me, and I was like, I could just, feed them to the dog. But then I was like, I don't want to deal with the consequences of that. But I do think that storms are a bit like that, because if we have a good foundation, if we hear Christ, build on him and stand firm, we do begin to look at storms differently. A bit like the foolish builder. We don't set out to be foolish. We don't set out looking for the storms. It's more that we remember the spicy flavour, and that in the kitchen there's milk. In the storm, we can remember that there's God who carried us through the last storm. So instead of panicking, we're like, okay, God, this is hard. I don't like it, but you've been faithful before, and you'll be faithful again. So maybe, spicy crisps in the future, I'll be like, yes, that's a good one. And I think, the wise builder doesn't stand firm because the storm is small, does he? He stands firm because the foundation is strong. So hear Christ, build on him, stand firm. And yet, sometimes storms strip everything back until all that seems to remain is what feels like emptiness. I think of Ezekiel in that valley. Bones, 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 like dry as the scorched earth beneath them. No life, no hope, no future. Everything about that valley says that the story is over. And perhaps some of us know what that feels like. Perhaps there are places in our lives that feel just like that valley. Dreams that seem dead, prayers unanswered, relationships that are just broken. But God asks Ezekiel a question. Son of man, can these bones live? And Ezekiel gives a very honest answer. Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Notice what happens next. God doesn't ask Ezekiel to go and fix the valley himself. He doesn't ask him to go and have a go his own way and then to go scurrying back to God and ask for help. He doesn't ask him to somehow conjure up life. God tells Ezekiel to say, "Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord." Because the same God who calls us to build on the rock is a God who speaks life into dead places. So when the storm comes, we hear the word of the Lord. When hope feels distant, we hear the word of the Lord. When we stand in the valley, we hear the word of the Lord. And the Spirit of God still breathes upon dry bones. The Spirit of God still restores what seems impossible. The Lord still declares, "I will put my Spirit in you and you will live." That is our hope. Not that we will never face storms, not that we will never walk through valleys, not that we will never wrestle with questions. Christ is our rock. His Spirit lives within us. What God builds cannot be shaken. So let the rain come. Let the floods rise. Let the winds blow. Because those who hear his words and put them into practice stand upon a foundation, that cannot be moved. And when all is said and done, we will discover that Jesus Christ was enough all along. Hear Christ, build on him, and stand firm. Amen.